Hello and welcome to episode 18 of the Renault Master camper conversion. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to fit a full plumbing system into your camper van, including a water tank, a water pump, a water heater, a kitchen sink, and all the corresponding pipework. So the whole point of adding the plumbing to the camper van is so that we can get hot and cold water supplied to the kitchen sink, and if you're going to have a shower in the van, then to supply your shower as well. But predominantly everyone was going to want a kitchen sink in their van so they can cook, clean, and get drinking water, etc. So the first thing we're going to start with here on this project is adding the water tank, which is under here, and it's the most difficult to get to. We'll also put the pump on the wall where it's going to sit, and once everything is positioned, we can then start to plan our pipe work. Before we fit the water heater, we're going to start with wiring a plug onto the end of the cables. It's going to be easier to do it inside the house than it will inside the van. Next, we want to fit our pressure relief valve, ensuring that the nipple is facing downwards. This is for the discharge hose. So this is the bottom of my unit, and the nipple is facing downwards. My kitchen cupboards are now built, so I can slide my heater into position, fix it down, and next I'll be able to run my pipe work. Ready to connect up to my kitchen sink. That is where it will be living. So I just need to fix it down and then I can start moving on with the pipe work. After fitting the heater, one of the first things you want to do is to mark a hole in the floor below the nipple. That is for your discharge pipe. The reason we have this is if the heater boils the water too much, and there's too much pressure, it can release it here. It also states in the manual to open the black valve every now and then, just to check that it's working and to prevent limescale build-up. The next step is to remove the relief valve, drill a hole in the floor and send a screw through. But before you've done that, it might be a good idea just to measure from another hole that you've done or a different reference points and just check where it's going to come out on the van. I think it's coming inside one of the structural parts for me, but there's a hole underneath, so I'll be able to feed it through and get it to the outside. But I'm going to go and check if it's in a good position now. It wasn't in the best position, but it was doable. So I've got it there, so we can just fix it over here somewhere. Just keep it neat and away from the metal. We don't want it dripping on any metal. Now the cupboards are built, the worktop's in, and the sink cut out is done, I'm going to start routing the pipes. So I've drilled 2 holes there and I've fitted a double clip there. We're going to put the hot above because when heat rises it would warm the cold pipe and that could cause parasites to grow in the water. So we put the hot above to prevent that from happening. The hot's quite an easy run. It goes straight to the water tank, through here into a T, which will then tee off to the kitchen sink, and the other pipe will go up into the shower. When fitting push fit pipes, you want to put the pipe against roughly about where it's going to stop and mark how deep it goes in. You always want to make sure that it goes all the way in. This can prevent it popping off and flooding your van. It can be a bit of tight to get in sometimes, so just give them a little wriggle. And there you go, it popped in. And then it's against that black line, if you can see that. So now I know it's in correctly. Now the discharge pipe is done, I've put on a 12mm to 1/2 inch push fit fitting on there. Hot water's done, so we're moving on to the cold. Now the pump was previously mounted. Today I've just put on this 90 and then a flexi down into an isolator and another 1/2 inch to 12mm push fitting. I'll be doing the same on this side without the 90. I'll just put a bit of flexi on here down to an isolator, and then I can isolate both ends of the system and remove the pump or the accumulator for servicing or replacement if need be. For now I'm just going to be concentrating on this side of the plumbing, and once that's all done, and then I will be fitting the isolator and flexi and then the tank and then connecting it all up together. So now my cold is connected up on this side of the van. I will be moving into the kitchen and putting in the T for the kitchen sink and capping off the pipes for the shower, because I won't be doing that right now. Now my kitchen sink is fitted. I've connected up the hot and the cold hoses and I've capped off the T's, which will eventually go to the shower. I'm not going to be doing the shower at the moment, so I'm just going to leave it like this. So now I'm going to move on to wiring up the pump and the heater. what I've got to do down here before I put my water tank in is put a plug on here and then connect it up to my hot water cylinder. Wire up my water pump. Now these are just screw down connectors, so I'll put a wire ferrule in there to keep my strands neat. And then put a switch in up here. Now this goes to the pump and this goes to the fuse board. Now we want to switch this so if there's any leaks or problems that the pump's not going to kick in when we don't want it to. So it's just a safety shut off really. And we don't want to wire any of these to the fuse board until the water tank is in and full of water and we've purged the water through to here. We don't want to run this dry as well as the hot water tank. We could burn them out by doing that, so we're going to make sure we've got water in the system before we wire them into the fuse board. So if they're not wired into the fuse board, we can't accidentally turn these on. So I've clipped my cable up here nice and neat for the water heater. I've also connected up my water pump, which is pretty straightforward, that job there. And then I've clipped the cables up the back there, nice and neat, coming up here, and then the same on this side. So my next job would be to wire up a switch. I need to put the cladding on here. I'm not sure what I'm going to do there yet. So I might just put a piece of board for now, or just have the switch hanging, just so I can test the system. And then I can move on to finishing the pipe work. The cold feed will be coming down here to an isolator and then finally connecting to the tank. So I'm just trying to get all these little jobs done before I get the tank in there, because it's going to limit my workspace. I fitted a flexi hose down to an isolator with a reducer to 12mm. So now I'm ready to fit my tank. So first I'm going to dress the tank with the fittings, and then I'll position this where it goes and do the final connection between the two. One thing I found was that this leaks. It has a rubber washer inside. It should compress against the end of the thread, but the shoulder of this hits this before it can fully tighten up, so I'm having to put PTFE tape around the thread to seal that in. So I'm going to do that now, and I've got another one to do, so I'm going to just do this one for now, and then I've got other stuff to do. So I need to get this van MOT'd, so I'm going to just connect this back up and leave it like this for now, and then come back to this later. The water's going to find the easiest route, so it's going to go into the tank first. But if I put my thumb in this hole, it's already in the system, but you can see it now coming out the kitchen tap. So I open the tap to let it come through. So now I've got water in the system and I won't be running the system dry. It was taking me a bit of time and the pressure was quite high to try and hold my thumb over that. So I just put a pipe bung in there for the hot water, and as you can see, it's flowing out of taps now. So I know that my whole system is full of water, so I'm going to go and turn it off and then wiring everything up, and then I can test it all. My switch is wired up. I put this board on to mount it to and clip the cables neatly too. And now I have wired into my fuse board too. I'm going to put in my fuse. I'm using a 10 amp fuse. And now I can go and switch it on and test the water pump. I'll start by turning it on. Here at priming. Now it's built up some pressure. And now we have water. Next thing to do is wire up the heater. I already done the wire in this side because I wanted to fit the water tank, so I didn't want to work around the water tank, so it's easier to do it before. And now I've just wired it to my fuse board. I've got my positive there, my negative there, both in the 6th terminal. So it's best to keep them in the same number terminals. Before I put the fuse in, I'm going to check that I've got water coming out of the hot tap. So that would mean that my water cylinder is full of water. So we don't want to turn it on when it's not got water in it. Tap is on the hot side, and then I'll open it. We have water coming through, so now I'll put the fuse in, and then I can set up the hot water on the control panel here. So even after wrapping this with 15 wraps of PTFE tape, which is standard procedure with PTFE tape, it still had a little bit of a drip. So I decided to replace it for a different type of isolation valve. I know that this one would screw all the way in and seal it with the rubber. So there's no PTFE on this one. It's literally the rubber sealing it as it was intended. So that's that done. I also got rid of the 12mm pipe here and used the flexi again because it has the rubber built in and it seals on there nicely. and then I just swapped out this bit there because it kept moving around and eventually it's going to start leaking, so I used a push fit because that will allow movement. This is nice and tight here, this is nice and tight, and then so is the valve. So what I've done is I've hooked it up to the mains pressure on the hose, and I've put a bung in the tank, so the whole system is now pressurized to the mains pressure, just to make sure it's not going to leak. So yeah, it's all good now. So I'm now going to push the tank back into position, disconnect the hose, and then turn on the hot water and heat it up.